When I lost my job, I didn't have many options left. Money was running out, the rent was overdue, and the only place I could go was my grandparents' old house in the village. No one had lived there for years. It wasn't much, but it was. Free, and at that point, that was all that mattered. The first few days were quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like the house is listening. I tried to keep myself busy, cleaning, unpacking, fixing small things. My dog, Tina, followed me everywhere, happy just to be out of the city. Behind the house, there was a patch of overgrown garden. I decided to clear it, thinking maybe I could plant something. The soil was hard, untouched for who knows how long. I dug for hours, sweating, swearing, trying to make the place look like someone actually lived there. That's when the shovel hit something. A dull, metallic sound. Not a rock, not a root. I knelt down and brushed the dirt away with my hands. There were coins. Gold coins, old, darkened by time, but unmistakably gold. Heavy, cold, wrong. I picked up a few, turned them in my fingers, wiped the dirt off. Tina started whining, pacing in circles, tail tucked. I thought she was just nervous from the smell of the earth. I should have listened to her. That night, I had the dream. I was standing in the garden, but the ground was soft, like freshly dug soil. Something was moving beneath it. Then I saw it, a tall shape, antlers twisting like broken branches, eyes pale and empty. It stood over the place where I had dug, staring at me without blinking. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. When I woke up, my sheets were damp with sweat and the room felt colder than it should have been. The next day, things started happening. Objects fell without reason. Doors creaked even when there was no wind. Tina refused to go near the garden. She growled at corners of the room when nothing was there. At night I heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, dragging, like something learning how to walk. I tried to calm myself down, telling myself it was just stress, just exhaustion, just the move. But then something came back to me, something I'd read once, though I can't remember where. Maybe it was a comment on some old forum, or a line in a book I never finished. It said that every buried treasure has its keeper. Not a person, not a ghost, but something older. Something that stays behind when gold is hidden in the earth. Something that doesn't forget who touched it. And if you dig where you shouldn't, it follows you home. First in your dreams, then in the corners of the house. And once it crosses your doorstep, it doesn't leave. I tried to ignore it. I tried to pretend everything was normal. Then Tina disappeared. I searched everywhere: the yard, the fields, the road, the abandoned houses nearby. Nothing. No tracks, no sound, no sign of her. Just silence. The kind that presses against your oar. That night, the house felt wrong. The air was thick, cold, heavy. I kept hearing small sounds, a floorboard settling, a faint thump somewhere in the walls, something brushing against the outside of the house. I checked every room twice. The garden looked untouched, like nothing had ever been buried there. But the hallway was dark, too dark. I thought I saw something at the end of it. A shape, tall, still, antlers scraping the ceiling. When I blinked, it was gone. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I'm exhausted. Maybe I'm imagining things. I keep telling myself that. I'm sitting on the floor now, listening, trying not to move, trying not to look at the dark part of the hallway where the boards just creaked again. I don't know what I brought into this house. I just know I'm not alone. And the night feels very, very long. My heart is pounding so hard it hurts, and I jump at every tiny noise. I don't think I'm going to survive the night. I'm from a small town in Utah. Not gonna say exactly where, but it's pretty dead out here. I've been getting into urbex the past few months. Nothing crazy, just old houses, small buildings, stuff like that. Last night I found this old factory. From what I could find online, it used to be some kind of steel place or warehouse. I don't know. It's way bigger than anything I've done before. I asked a few friends to come, but nobody could, so yeah, I went alone. I know that was stupid. You don't got to tell me. It had just rained too, so everything was wet. And it was like really quiet. Like not normal quiet. I stood outside my car for a second, and it just felt off. No bugs, no wind, nothing. Just dead. Silent. There was a fence, but it wasn't hard to get over. The main doors were boarded up, so I went round back and found a broken window near the ground. Had to slide in on my back, scratched myself a bit, but whatever. Inside was way more messed up than I thought. Glass everywhere, garbage, random stuff. It did not look fully abandoned, more like people had been in there recently. I kept my flashlight kind of low. I just didn't want to light the whole place up. The first room I got into was like a storage area. Shelves knocked over, boxes everywhere. It went back pretty far. After a bit, I found a room that looked like someone had been staying there. Mattress in the corner, clothes, empty bottles. Some of them had like yellow or reddish stuff in them, which was nasty. So I didn't really look. That's also where I first noticed the writing. Just one word. Over and over. MATRIC. At first I thought it was just some tag or whatever, but I kept seeing it in other rooms too. Same messy red paint, sometimes small, sometimes huge, across the wall. Some of it looked old, some of it looked newer, which was kind of weird. I wasn't really scared yet, just thought it was creepy. While I was in that room, I heard something move behind me, like a small shift or something. I figured it was an animal, so I didn't stay long. When I walked out, I heard scratching for like a second. Again. Probably nothing, but it got me a little on edge. I kept going anyway. There was this hallway where part of the ceiling had caved in and rain was dripping through. It actually looked kind of cool, like overgrown and broken at the same time. But around there is when I started feeling like I shouldn't be there. Like that feeling when you think someone is watching you but you can't prove it. I kept turning around for no reason. I found this door with a little dirty window in it. I looked through and could barely see inside, but there was a chair in the middle of the room. Just one. Chair. I don't know why, but I stood there staring at it for a minute. It did not make sense why it was there like that. I tried the door and it wouldn't open, so I grabbed a metal bar off the ground and forced it a bit until it popped. As soon as it opened, I smelled something really bad. Like something had been rotting. I only stepped in a little bit. There was an office chair in the middle like I saw. The floor around it had dark stains, not bright red or anything, just like old marks. I didn't want to think about it too much. I bumped the chair by accident and it spun a little. The marks kind of circled around it. Then I heard something outside. The room just one step, I think. I froze and listened, but it stopped. I told myself it was just the building or something, and I left that room pretty quick. On my way back, I realized I didn't have my keys, so I went back to the room with the mattress. The door was closed. I don't remember closing it. I mean, maybe I did, but I really don't think so. I opened it and my keys were on the floor by the bottles. The mattress looked different too. Like, I swear, there were clothes on it before, but now it just looked empty. Could have been the lighting, or angle or something, I don't know. As I grabbed my keys, I heard a crunch behind me. Not like random glass falling, like something stepped on it. I turned around fast but didn't see anything. Then I heard it. It sounded like laughing but quiet, like someone trying to hold it in. It stopped after a couple of seconds. That was enough for me. I didn't care what it was, I just wanted out. I started heading back to where I came in, probably walking faster than before. I heard that sound again behind me, closer this time. I didn't turn around, I just kept going. When I got to the window, I climbed out as fast as I could. It took a second, but I got out. I stood up and looked back for a split second. I thought I saw something move inside near the window. Could have just been shadows. I didn't stay to find out. I got in my car and left. I haven't gone back since. I told a couple of people, and they just said I freaked myself out being alone. Which is probably true. But I can't stop thinking about that name everywhere in the building. Matrici. Tried looking it up again today and didn't find much. But I did see one old forum post from years ago that mentioned the same place. It was short, but it said something like, "If you see Matric, don't stay after you hear it." I gauge what that means, and maybe it's just people messing around online. But I'm not going back to check. Also, this is kind of dumb. But I just noticed something while typing this. When I grabbed my keys last night, I didn't really look at them. I just picked them up and left. But right now there's a small red mark on the side of my key dot. I don't remember that being there before. It's probably nothing. Like rust or something from the place IDK. I am just tired. Honestly, if anyone knows anything about that building or has been there before, let me know. I used to work for a private surveying company that mapped old municipal tunnel systems under Northern California. Most of the work was boring. Storm drains, utility access routes, runoff chambers. You'd spend 10 hours underground breathing mold and rat shit just to update a city blueprint nobody would ever look at. 3 months ago, my company got contracted to inspect an abandoned tunnel grid beneath a section of Fairfield, slated for redevelopment. The city records called it a decommissioned flood diversion system. That was the first lie. There were 4 of us sent down there. Me, Louise Harper, our supervisor. Dennis, the entrance, was hidden behind an old pumping station, fenced off from the public. The weird thing was the lock. It looked new, not rusty. Not abandoned or brand new steel. Dennis joked that maybe homeless people were squatting down there. None of us laughed very hard because the place already felt wrong before we even entered. The air coming out of the access shaft smelled warm. Not hot, warm, like breath. The tunnel itself didn't match the city schematics, according to the maps. There should have been one central runoff corridor splitting into 3 branches. Instead, there were dozens. The walls looked older the deeper we went. Concrete turned to brick. Brick turned to something else entirely. Smooth black surfaces that reflected our flashlights strangely. Almost wet dash looking. About 30 minutes in, Lewis stopped walking. He just stood there, staring down a side passage. Dennis asked what was wrong. Louis said, very quietly, "Do you guys hear that?" We all stopped at first. I thought it was water moving through pipes. Then, I realized it sounded like people talking from very far away. Not echoes, not conversations. Harper laughed nervously and said sound travels weird, underground. But the deeper we went, the louder it got. Hundreds of overlapping voices, whispering, crying, some laughing at one point. I heard someone say my name, not shouted, whispered directly into my ear. I spun around so fast I slammed my shoulder into the wall. Nobody was there. I grabbed and massaged my sore shoulder. Dennis wanted to turn back after that, but our radio stopped working around the same time. Full static. No signal at all. That's when we found the markings, names carved into the tunnel walls. Thousands of them. Not graffiti, precise cuts. Some looked over 100 years. Old, others were fresh. Still covered in dust. Lewis started panicking. He kept saying we needed to leave because he recognized one of the names. His brother. The fuck. The problem with that was that his brother was still alive. Or at least he was supposed to be. Things got bad after we crossed the flooded section. The voices stopped sounding distant. They sounded close enough to touch. I heard crying directly behind me for almost 10 straight minutes. But every time I turned around, there was nothing there except the tunnels stretching behind us. Then Harper disappeared. No. Scream, no footsteps. 1 second. He was behind me. The next second was a bent Dennis. Dennis started yelling his name, while Lewis kept saying, "We had to keep moving, because they notice you when you stop." I asked him what the hell he meant by that. He looked at me like I was stupid. You can feel them looking at you, right? And honestly, I could. That was the moment I realized the tunnel wasn't empty. Not physically empty. The walls started changing after that. I know how insane this sounds, but parts of the surface looked soft. Veins underneath it, pulsing slowly, like the entire place was alive. We found Harper eventually, or most of him. He was standing mangled chest deep in black water in a maintenance chamber, facing the wall, completely still. Dennis climbed down too. Get him and immediately started screaming. Not from fear, pain. He clawed at his own face, hard, enough to tear skin off while yelling that he could see through them. I don't know what that means. I hear his voice saying it in my sleep. Over and over. Luce dragged me out before I could help. Maybe he saved my life. Maybe he didn't. Because ever since that night, things haven't stopped. I have been fucking traumatized. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see tunnels. Not dreams, memories, but like, not mine. Does that make sense? I know it doesn't, but I've seen people drowning underground. Workers sealed behind caviens. Children crying in darkness. Faces pressed against walls that move and feel like skin. Last week, I heard my own voice whisper my name while I was trying to fall asleep. Yesterday, I found mud in my bathtub drain. Black. Mud, the same kind from the tunnel. I live alone, I found out that Lewis killed himself. 2 weeks after the survey. No note. Just one sentence carved into his apartment wall. Not dead. Still down there. The city halted redevelopment around the pumping station after structural concerns. That was the official statement. But yesterday I drove past the site. The fence is gone now, and the hatch is open. There is a building at the edge of my university's campus that no one will acknowledge exists. And I have spent the better part of the last few months trying to understand why. I still don't have a clean answer, but I have a story that needs to be told before it is buried for good. I go to a mid-sized state university in New Jersey. Let's call it our university. I'm still a student here. And if you happen to attend this school and know exactly which shadows I'm talking about, you'll understand why I'm keeping our names out of this. Before I go any further, I want to be upfront. I don't have hard, physical proof of most of what I'm about to say. What I have is a physical building that occupies space, an institutional silence that feels deliberately and meticulously maintained, and a collection of second-hand accounts from people who have no reason to coordinate their stories. Whether you choose to believe this is entirely up to you, but for those of us who have seen it, belief isn't a choice. This is about the Triad apartments. The fact that you've almost certainly never heard of them, even if you've walked these grounds for years, is exactly the point. I've been at this university for 3 years now. I've done the official campus tours, sat through the grueling orientations, lived in the cramped dorms, and talked to more RAS and housing staff than any normal person ever should. In all that time, not one snot in a single housing portal, not in a campus map PDF, not in the administrative offices of Shavitz Holded, I ever hear the name Triad Apartments mentioned. It was as if a whole residential complex had been surgically removed from the university's memory. I only stumbled onto the name by accident during my junior year. Someone on my floor mentioned it in passing, their voice dropping to a whisper, sounding like they weren't sure they should even be speaking the words. When I pressed them for details, they looked genuinely uncomfortable, retreating into vague platitudes about it being just a thing people say. That discomfort was the spark. I wish I had let it die there. The first thing I did was try to find it on a digital map. Go ahead and try it yourself. Search Triad Apartments on Apple Maps or Google Maps while you're near campus. Look through the official interactive map on the school website or the PDF given to every incoming freshman. It isn't there. The building physically exists, tucked away on the far, obscure edge of campus, but it is a ghost in the machine. Every other dining hall, surface lot, and academic building is labeled with clinical precision. Yet Triad is simply absent. So I started asking questions, carefully to people I trusted. I asked Anra, I've known since freshman year, someone I consider a friend. When the name Triad left my mouth, he paused for a beat too long, that telltale hesitation of someone deciding what not to say. He claimed he'd heard the name once, but had no idea where it was, suggesting I ask the housing office in Shavitz Hall. I took his advice. The woman at the desk there told me she wasn't familiar with the name and asked if I was even on the right campus. When I described its location, she promised to look into it and get back to me. She never did. A second staff member I approached gave me a practiced, rehearsed response about older facilities being no longer in use and pending evaluation. It felt like she was reading from a script she had memorized years ago. Eventually, I submitted a formal records request. It took weeks, but the response was a single, chillingly vague sentence. It stated the building had been decommissioned due to recurring infrastructure concerns, including drainage issues and confirmed presence of environmental hazards. No dates, no details, no record of where the students were moved. Just drainage issues. A whole residential complex scrubbed from the map because of a few leaks. It didn't add up. If you want to find it, you have to know exactly where to look, because the school has made sure no signs will point the way. You walk past Business Hall, the furthest academic building, past the last operational parking lot, the one that's weirdly maintained, despite having almost no foot traffic hand. Then you cross the train tracks. Once you cross those tracks, the world changes. There are no pathway markings, no lights, no signs. Most people who wander this far assume they've hit the edge of the property and turned back. But if you keep walking into the silence, Triad is there. 3 connected, white apartment-style buildings tucked away like a shameful secret. The first time I found it, I just stood there, absorbing the wrongness of it. It doesn't look like a dorm. It looks like a psych, ward sterile, blocky, and cold. It is a 10-minute walk from the next closest building, an eternity on a campus, where everything else is crammed together. It felt like the university was trying to hide it in plain sight. The stories I've gathered since then are where things get dark. Triad used to be a normal dorm, but sometime between 2010 and 2017, it quietly dropped off the portal. According to the whispers, the building was repurposed for something the university calls isolation or containment. These weren't criminals. They were students flagged for mental health crises or behavioral issues people. The university didn't want in the general population, but didn't want to officially expel. They were reportedly brought here for a 2-week minimum. They couldn't leave, and their families were sent form letters about voluntary wellness support that never specified a location. I haven't met anyone who was held there, but I've heard this exact 2-week minimum detail from 3 different people who don't know each other. Then came 2020, when COVID cleared the campus. The isolation in Triad allegedly turned into something much worse. Some say a resident who had been held far longer than 2 weeks finally snapped. They say it was violent. They say a young man and a young woman never made it out of that building. Their lives ended by someone the university had tried to contain. If any part of that is true, those students were erased twice, once by their killer, and once by the institution that wiped their residence from the map. The official excuse is the mold, the flooding, the COVID delays. They all feel like throwaway lies designed to exhaust the person asking. I went out there at night once, and I will never do it again. It wasn't movie scary. It was the kind of scary that makes your skin feel like it's crawling off your bones. As soon as I crossed the tracks, the ambient hum of the university just died. No music, no distant laughter, just an oppressive, heavy silence. I stood in front of the white buildings for 10 minutes, watching the windows. Then, on the 3rd floor, a light flickered on. It wasn't a normal light. It was a sickly, dim yellow fluorescent. In that light, I saw a silhouette. It was standing perfectly still, face pressed against the glass, watching me. It didn't look like a ghost. It looked like a human being who had forgotten how to exist in the world. When I took a step back, the figure vanished and the light cut out instantly. There was no click of a switch, just a sudden return to total darkness. I turned to run, and Almost tripped over something on the side of the road, a makeshift grave. A cross, some faded flowers, glass shards, and a name I couldn't make out in the dark. I spun back toward the building and saw another light click on, this time on a different floor on the opposite side. I didn't stay to see who else was watching. Since then, I've talked to 5 other students who have seen those lights. They don't follow a schedule. They move between floors. They appear long after midnight when the building is supposed to be empty and dead. The university's official position remains that the building is merely decommissioned and awaiting next steps. But next steps don't usually involve erasing a location from GPS and going silent when students ask questions. It might mean that whatever Triad was used for hasn't actually finished. Somewhere out there, past the train tracks and the empty parking lots, something is still happening in a building that doesn't exist. Some people say you can still feel the weight of what happened there in 2020. That the building is holding on to those memories because no one has been allowed in to let them out. The lights come on, the shadows move, and the administration looks the other way. I don't know for sure what's still happening in Triad, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to know anymore. But I'm telling you this because you deserve to know that the map isn't the whole truth. If you go looking for the edge of campus, you might just find something that was never meant to be found. Be careful where you wander after dark. Some buildings are forgotten for a reason, and some decommissioned rooms still have occupants who are waiting for someone to notice they're still there. Just remember, if you see that flickering yellow light on the 3rd floor, don't wait for the silhouette to move. Just turn around and cross the tracks. Some secrets are better left in the dark.